What is human culture? In all of its many forms and facets. We have its diversity of visual arts and music, and its different means of survival and production. From hunting and gathering, pastoralism, and agrarianism, to industrialization and information technology. We have its storytelling, in all its many forms. From verbal, to theater, to puppetry, and film and television. And we have its practices of trade and business, with its many and varied marketplaces, including the online marketplace of today. We have its nurturing and welfare practices, to provide care-giving to all individuals, and also its practices and institutions of warfare and policing. And of course, we have its many and varied belief systems. So many elements of culture to consider. So many facets of culture to explain. And how did culture emerge from the human species in the first place? And how has it managed to change so dramatically over the course of thousands of years? And even within the period of one single generation. With so many forms and facets of culture to consider, both in the past and present, how are we to make sense of all of this complexity? This is the first of a series of videos, which will look at human culture from a new perspective. A new perspective that emphasizes the fundamental connection between the brain biology of humans and the culture they create, in all its many facets. From its arts and music, its means of production, storytelling, business activity, nurturing and welfare, to its warfare, policing, and belief systems. And we'll use this new approach to examine the extraordinary journey of human culture. From its birth, in ancestral human populations, to its full development in modern humans. The central focus of this new perspective is the way in which culture arises out of the common biology of individual human brains. The human brain is a highly complex organ, and how it actually functions is something that we don't completely understand at this stage. For example, we still don't fully know which areas of the brain perform what function. But we do know that there are certain major types of brain activity which, when triggered, create specific behaviors. And for the purposes of understanding culture, we can break down these major areas of brain activity into 7 conceptual categories. First of all, we have brain activity associated with the processing of sensory information. Our sensations of sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste are all the result of neurochemical processes occurring in different areas of the brain. Put together, they form the sensory function of brain activity. So we can refer to these collective processes as sensory awareness. We also have a set of brain processes that allow humans to make rational decisions essential to their survival. We'll refer collectively to these processes as survival rationality. There are also evolved regions of the brain that allow humans to have social awareness. These areas of brain activity make it possible for humans to live in groups and interact with each other, and can be referred to as social intelligence. Another major area of brain activity revolves around the sensation of our own individual identity and our well-being. This includes brain processes responsible for self-survival and the sensations of personal pleasure and reward. We'll refer to this collection of brain processes as self-awareness. And at the other extreme to self-awareness are the neurochemical processes of the brain associated with the recognition of other people and their needs and well-being, what can be called other awareness. We also have brain activities associated with aggression and control, which we'll call dominance. And finally, we have neurochemical activities related to the processing of information, which appears irrational or mysterious to us. We'll refer to this area of brain activity as metaphysics. As we will see, each of these 7 key categories of brain activity are essential to the creation of human culture, as each creates a major component of it. Sensory awareness creates all the cultural arts. Survival rationality creates the means of production. Social intelligence is responsible for all the forms of storytelling, from verbal to puppetry to theater and film. Self-awareness creates the business activity of any human population. Other awareness takes the form of nurturing and welfare practices. Dominance, not surprisingly, is responsible for the warfare and policing aspects of culture. And metaphysics creates all the belief systems. In order to understand how each of these areas of biological brain activity came to form a major aspect of culture, we first of all need to look briefly at how they evolved in ancestral humans. The brain of an ancestral human would have had all of these areas of brain activity, but in a more basic form. And collectively, these cognitive processes made it possible for early humans to survive and procreate. Certainly, sensory awareness would have been a key area of brain activity for ancestral humans, which allowed them to experience their environment through sight, sound, smell, touch and taste. This fundamental collection of neurochemical processes was essential to their ability to act in ways that made survival and reproduction possible. And importantly, the combined areas of the brain responsible for sensory awareness would have been common to all individual ancestral humans, which, as we will see, is essential to the emergence of culture. Sensory awareness also allowed for the development of the second major category of human brain activity: survival rationality. This particular composite of brain activities developed in ancestral humans to allow them to find food sources and avoid becoming the food source of other species. This involved a collection of fundamental cognitive processes, such as spatial recognition, short and long-term memory, logical induction and deduction, and importantly, pattern recognition, all of which allowed ancestral humans to locate and exploit environmental resources. The cycle of night and day could now be recognized and remembered, as could the longer and more complicated cycle of the seasons, thereby giving ancestral humans the ability to hold a space-time map of their environment within their minds at all times, in order to remember the location and time of year that particular foods and resources become available, and to recognize and infer behavioral patterns of other species, in order to successfully hunt and gather food. And once again, the specific areas of the brain responsible for the collective processes of survival rationality were common to all ancestral humans. Associated with the need to find and exploit resources for survival is also the need to procreate. In ancestral humans, we saw the development of a form of brain activity associated with social intelligence, which allows individuals to function in groups in ways that maximize their procreational success. This collection of cognitive processes would include the ability to recognize the emotional states and motivations of other individuals, to be able to recognize deception in others, and to deceive others, and to recognize and respond to group hierarchy through an ability to interact with specific individuals in an appropriate way. Parts of the ancestral human brain therefore evolved to effectively process visual and verbal information from other group members, such as facial expressions and auditory tonal variations. This allowed group members to successfully understand the emotional and cognitive states of other individuals. As such, social intelligence was a fundamental cognitive development that allowed for group living amongst early humans. And as we'll see, it was also these neurochemical processes of social intelligence that eventually formed the biological basis of storytelling in human culture. We would also find in ancestral humans two other important and yet opposing types of brain activity, which can be referred to as self-awareness and other awareness. In the case of self-awareness, there were areas of the ancestral brain which, when stimulated, activate sensations of individuality and personal well-being. These included brain processes responsible for self-survival, such as the important sensation a brain gets when it experiences personal pain, or the sensation it gets when it feels personal pleasure and reward. These essential brain processes were key to the very survival of an individual, as the ability to react to stimuli that causes either pain or pleasure is fundamental to the ability of any organism to survive. And it is these types of basic neurochemical processes of the brain, which among other things, came to form the basis of business entrepreneurialism in modern humans. On the opposite spectrum to self-awareness, we have other areas of the ancestral human brain which were associated with other awareness. These neurochemical processes, when stimulated, activated sensations associated with such things as caregiving and altruism, and a general awareness of the health and condition of other group members. These areas of the brain correspondingly generated behaviors such as nurturing the young, self-sacrifice, and the caring for all group members, which were behaviors that were fundamental and essential to the reproductive needs and group survival of early humans. And unsurprisingly, these types of brain activities came to form the basis of the nurturing and welfare aspects of modern human culture. From caring for children and teaching the young, to nursing and medicine, and eventually, to the creation of caregiving institutions, such as hospitals and nursing homes. Another important area of ancestral brain functioning is that associated with aggressive and dominance behaviors. In this case, areas of the ancestral brain, when stimulated, activated individuals to try and control their immediate environment through the use of aggressive and dominance behaviors. Initially, these types of brain activity evolved due to their ability to protect an individual, as both vocal and physical aggressive displays by individuals helped to protect them from other species, and also other members of their own group. However, with group living, and the increased brain activity of other awareness, we saw the development of this dominance brain activity taking two different forms. Firstly, particular individuals would come to dominate their group, and act to maintain a secure and controlled group environment. This can be referred to as in-group dominance. And secondly, individuals within a group would act collectively to secure their environment from external threats. What can be referred to as out-group dominance. Not surprisingly then, this type of neurochemical process of the ancestral brain, firstly, became the basis of the internal group dominance associated with policing of modern humans, and secondly, became the basis of the out-group dominance associated with warfare. Finally, we have functional areas of the ancestral brain associated with what can be referred to as metaphysics. In this case, these brain areas would have evolved in conjunction with the areas of the brain associated with survival rationality, due to the situation that, along with a gradual awareness of the rational nature of the world, would have come an awareness of its apparent, non-rational nature. As for example, when ancestral humans witnessed the sudden occurrence of particular events in the sky, which don't appear to fit within any obvious pattern of the natural world, or when there was the sudden death of an infant within the group, which would have emotionally upset individual ancestral humans and cognitively puzzled them. The metaphysical area of the ancestral brain would have been activated by such events. But at this stage of their cognitive development, they would have been unable to create a belief system to psychologically and collectively deal with these strange and traumatic events. Nevertheless, the neurochemical structures, which would eventually allow for this cultural development, would have been laid down in the brains of ancestral humans. And so we have these key areas of the ancestral human brain, which evolved over millions of years to maximize the survival and procreational success of early humans. But what occurred next was the most extraordinary moment in the long history of not just human life, but of all of life on this planet. This event occurred somewhere around 300,000 years ago, based on current evidence. At this time, these internal, neurochemical processes of the brain, of ancestral humans, were able to manifest into the material world, as sounds and objects, that could be passed from one generation to the next, such as the development of language, and the creation of various tools. Hence we saw the remarkable event, of the birth of culture, by a living species. How this occurred, and what exactly culture is, will be the topic of the next video.